Today is Tuesday, July 23rd, 2019. This is Roland Unfiltered, broadcasting live from the NAACP convention here at Cobo Center in Detroit. Got a jam-packed show for you. You'll hear from Derek Johnson, president of the NAACP, talking about their focus on the 2020 campaign. Also, Democratic National Committee Chair Tom Perez, he also will join us talking about, again, their focus when it comes to candidates running for office, and also talk about the first debate that will take place at the HBCU in September in Houston. We'll also we'll hear from Congressman Al Green. He introduced the resolution on the floor of the NAACP calling for the impeachment of Donald Trump. It was unanimous vote. You will get to see exactly what took place as well. Also on the show, our crazy as white people segment. You know, some crazy stuff that's already happened, and we have more for you. It's time to bring the funk. Roland Unfiltered. Let's go.
He's got it. Whatever the miss, he's on it. Whatever it is, he's got the scoop, the fact, the find. And when it breaks, he's right on time and it's rolling. Best believe he's knowing. Putting it down from sports to news to politics. With entertainment just for kicks, he's rolling. It's on go, y'all. It's Roland Martin, yeah. Rolling with Roland now. He's funk, he's fresh, he's real, the best, you know he's Roland Martin now. Martin.
All right, folks, we're here in Detroit for the 110th annual NAACP convention. Of course, it has been quite busy 2 days. Tomorrow, you're going to have a number of the presidential candidates running on the Democratic side who will be here for a presidential forum, but we'll get to that in a moment with our panel. But first, today, the NAACP delegates unanimously voted for the impeachment of Donald Trump. Representative Al Green of Houston, of course, member of Congress, but also a former president of the Houston branch of the NAACP. He was here to actually introduce that resolution, and folks here made it perfectly clear they want to see Donald Trump impeached. This is what took place today in Detroit.
Simply insult individuals?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She said she sent an amendment. Question has been called. Cut off debate on the emergency resolution. All those in favor, raise your voting card. Those opposed? Debate is cut. Debate has ended. We're now voting on the emergency resolution as amended. All those in favor, raise your voting card. All those opposed? The chair declares that this resolution has passed unanimously. Yeah.
As I said, Congressman Al Green, he was here to actually read that resolution and introduce it. He and I sat down and he explained why he wanted the NAACP to be on record for the impeachment of Donald Trump. Hey folks, Roland Martin here. We're, of course, in Detroit for the 110th annual NAACP annual convention. And right now, of course, they're about to vote on various resolutions. Joining us right now, a former president of NAACP branch in Houston, now Congressman from Houston, Al Green. How you doing?
I'm doing quite well, better than I deserve, dear brother. Thank you for all that you do. Many people don't know of your great works in the human rights, civil rights movement to the extent that I do. I want the world to know that I appreciate you.
I appreciate it. Thank you so very much. Let's get right to it. You just finished speaking on stage, speaking to a resolution for the NAACP calling for the impeachment of Donald Trump. Why is it important, even though the NAACP is a nonpartisan organization, why is it important from your vantage point that they support that resolution and pass it?
Well, thank you. The NAACP is maintaining its position of being nonpartisan. That's a nonpartisan resolution. It's not about Democrats, it's about democracy. It's not about Republicans, it's about the Republic. And it's important to have the NAACP's name associated with this endeavor because the NAACP brings a level of credibility that no other organization can bring. It's the oldest civil rights organization in the country, and it will have some influence on people who actually vote in the House of Representatives, knowing that the NAACP is on board.
Obviously, you had less than 100 folks who voted for it, but since you have an additional number of Democrats who come out for this as well, Robert Mueller is testifying tomorrow as well. Do you think it's important for people to also continue to put pressure on Speaker Nancy Pelosi to have hearings so people can actually hear the various details in that Mueller report, as opposed to what we've seen thus far, just Attorney General Barr giving his synopsis?
I think hearings are important, but I also know this, that the president has said enough in the public domain for us to move forward. The president can be impeached for his bigotry. Andrew Johnson was impeached for bigotry in 1868. I believe it would be far better for us to impeach him for his bigotry than obstruction of justice. Now, I was the first to call for his impeachment for obstruction of justice on the House floor, but I understand now that this is an opportunity for us to send a message to those who will look through the vista of time in terms of how we attack bigotry. Those who tolerate bigotry perpetuate bigotry. We should not allow it to perpetuate. We can actually impeach a president for it. We just have to demand it. I assure you, if this president behaved this way and he were a certain other president, let's just call him President Obama, he would be impeached just for what he has said.
Do you also believe that this emboldens him by having essentially no repercussions against him for his actions?
You are so correct, eminently so. When he sees that there are no guardrails, it does embolden him. He has become now a president who believes that he can do pretty much anything that he wants. And by the way, that's what he's doing. When he says go back, that's a trope that you and I understand has been used many times against us personally, and it is something that sends a message to another group of people in society who didn't want us to be here in the first place. Those people then become activated. He incites hate. We must not allow him to finish his presidency without our having had our last word, which is impeachment.
Last question for you, and then you have to get back to Washington, D.C. Let's talk about your thoughts on the cowardice of Republicans who are unwilling to really stand up in significant numbers. Only 4 voted for the Democratic resolution to condemn his racist tweets. Many are offering all kind of excuses. That, to me, again, shows exactly where the Republican Party is today in 2019, that they as a party will not condemn clear, undeniable racism from this man.
History will not be kind to the Republican Party for its lack of standing up for the American people. You're not standing up for black people. You're not standing up for brown people. You're standing up for the American people whenever you take on bigotry and hatred and a president who has obstructed justice. This is all about whether anyone is going to be above the law. We all say no one is above the law. Well, if you don't take a stand against what the person is doing that is against the law, then you're allowing that person to be above the law. We ought not allow this to happen. I don't think history is going to be kind to Republicans. Now, having said that, I have to say this. We need the spirit of 1868 in the Congress because, and that's when Andrew Johnson was impeached, because we cannot allow this to become just Republicans. Democrats have got to get on the impeachment bandwagon as well. While I would love to have Republicans, we have 235 Democrats. Mm-hmm. We can do this without a Republican. I would love to do it, but we can't.
For the folks who don't understand the Constitution,
sure.
House impeaches, Senate convicts,
exactly,
or finds not guilty. So the reality is, so when you say impeached, he could be impeached in the House. That goes down, obviously, for record. The conviction comes in the Senate. That's where the removal comes in.
Absolutely correct. And Andrew Johnson, who was impeached, did not win his next election, by the way. Bill Clinton was impeached. His heir apparent did not win the election. Impeachment is an indelible stain that is placed on a president. The House does it. We can do it with 212 votes, assuming all members of president voting. 218 votes, all members president voting. We in the House can take up this with or without Republican support, and we can pass impeachment with or without Republican support.
And you don't. And again, first of all, your job in the House is to do the business of the House. When you hear Speaker Pelosi say, "Well, the Senate's not going to convict; it was a waste of time," that to me is the equivalent of saying, "Well, you could pass a bill which Democrats have done in the House, and McConnell doesn't take up." So what does that mean? You don't take up any bills in the House?
We have passed many bills in this session that he has not taken up. He's not going to take up minimum wage, the last one that we passed just before we left. We must do our job and let the Senate do its job. And I'll add this. If the Senate doesn't do its job, then you'll know what senators we need to take a second look at.
Got it.
Also, if the Senate doesn't do its job, then I believe history will show that the Senate itself was on the wrong side of history. Thank you very much.
Congressman Al Green, I know you got to go. I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Thank you.
All right, folks, let's break it down with our panel. We have Kelly Bethea, communications strategist, Dr. Jason Nichols, Department of African American Studies at University of Maryland, and Malik Abdul. That's right, not Malik, Malik. He's back. Of course, you knew I was gonna mess with you, so let's not act like that wasn't gonna happen. Of course, Melik, Vice President, Black Conservative Federation. All right, Melik, I'll let you get started first. NAACP unanimous supporting Representative Al Green for the impeachment of Donald Trump. Your response?
Oh, it's not surprising that they would do something like that. I imagine that this time next year, when we have the same conversation about the NAACP convention, and Trump declines to show up again, you know, you only have to look at this to see why he probably shouldn't have gone in the first place. Because I don't know if they would have done that had Trump actually.
No, that's nonsense. No, that's nonsense. First of all, I guarantee you the resolution would have still actually taken place had Trump come. I actually interviewed Derek Johnson and talked to him about that. He's going to explain later exactly what took place. Donald Trump really did not want to answer any questions, Jason, from this body. That's what the real issue was. He wanted to come in here and give his usual spiel, and they said, no, you're a candidate. But you'll hear more of that from Derek Johnson a little bit later. But Jason, on this resolution, again, it was unanimous. The membership, they stood with Congressman Al Green. Your thoughts?
Yeah, I agree with Melik that actually, you know, this was expected, and it's the right thing to do. I think that there's so much evidence. I think tomorrow when we hear from Bob Mueller, he's going to illustrate it and make it come alive again that the president obstructed justice, that's unbecoming of a president of the United States. He's racially divisive, and an organization that has been devoted to racial justice should condemn him and not want him to be our commander-in-chief any longer. So this was no surprise to me, and I think the organization did what was right.
So, Kelly, when you look at this resolution, bottom line is, if you listen to Congressman Al Green, he wasn't just talking about what took place in 2016 with Russia. He talked about the bigoted comments from this particular president, his behavior, how he has acted. He said that's what he should be impeached for. Your thoughts on this NAACP resolution?
I couldn't agree more with it. I mean, we have not just, like Al Green said, we have years now of behavior and lies and situations in which, if it were any other person in this office, he or she would have been impeached by now. They probably wouldn't have even been elected by now. So the fact that we are this far along and still nothing has been done, we are getting closer, according to what I recall Al Green saying. We now have more votes than the last time there was a vote regarding impeachment. So we have more coming together in terms of making this an initiative. But I think we're behind the ball on this as Democrats. This should have happened in 2016 before, you know, we had this mess.
Well, but here's the deal, though. The reality is, well, first of all, in 2016, Democrats did control the House. Okay, so Democrats didn't get control of the House until after 2018. So this wasn't going to happen in 2016. Republicans certainly were not going to do it. Now, of course, you have Robert Mueller who's going to be testifying tomorrow. And so people are going to actually hear from him about what his report said. Not an analysis, not an opinion from William Barr, Melik, but actually from the guy who actually led it. And you have the White House, of course, who's trying their best to stun it. They have sent a letter saying that he cannot cannot answer any questions that go outside of the report, claiming executive privilege. What the hell is that all about?
I'm not really sure what's the standard or really why he would answer.
There is none.
Well,
they're making it up.
Yeah, but I'm just not sure why he would answer. What he's there to testify about his, couple of year-long investigation, and I'm just not sure what benefit there would be for him to talk about things outside of the investigation. So I don't necessarily disagree with what the White House is pushing back against in that sense. But what I will say...
Are you serious? Come on, Malik. Are you serious? But look, they have been trying to extend executive privilege to every person, even people who don't even work for the White House anymore. Okay, so they're trying to extend this in areas that are nonsensical.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't, again, I haven't followed it closely enough to see what things they're actually claiming executive privilege over, but I just don't know why would Mueller answer questions that are outside of the investigation, because that's the only thing that we're talking about, the investigation. So I'm just not sure why he would answer questions outside of that.
Well, fine, Jason. Leave it up to him to answer whatever questions he wants, but to have the Department of Justice weigh in, telling him what he can and cannot answer, shows this administration wants to control everything, and they're frankly going really way beyond what the law says.
Absolutely. They are 100% very scared that Bob Mueller is actually going to be speaking. But to be honest, Roland, I think what's in the report is enough. I think when Americans actually hear, because people heard the spin, they heard, news organizations try to show both sides. They heard the White House talking points from other organizations. They heard the president saying he was totally exonerated. This is going to tear the skirt off, and we're going to see the bare naked report coming from the man who wrote it. And I think that that's going to be enough when people see how this man obstructed justice. Of course, he's always going to have his cult-like followers, but there are people out there who are going to be swayed by hearing Bob Mueller's voice actually say what was in the report. So I don't even think we actually need to hear any extra dirt that's lying under the carpet. I think that there's plenty on the surface.
All right then, folks. Again, also here in Detroit, I had a chance to talk with Tom Perez, who is the chair of the Democratic National Committee. He spoke to the NAACP delegates, and here is our conversation. Joining us right now, folks, is Tom Perez. Of course, he is the chairman of the Democratic National Committee. How you doing? Take a seat right here, sir. Good to have you here.
Great to be with you.
Glad to see you. First and foremost, I just chatted with Congressman Al Green here. Your thoughts on his continuing push, calling for the impeachment of President Trump, and trying to get this body to actually pass a resolution endorsing that.
Well, I think tomorrow is going to be important because we need to hear from Director Mueller. I was a prosecutor at the Department of Justice for a long time. I did public corruption cases, Roland. I had a lot of people who would come to me and say, you've got to indict this person tomorrow. And I understood that instinct because there was frequently a cloud of uncertainty that hung over it. I'm a big believer, and this is based on 13 years at DOJ, that I have to marshal the facts. I have to gather the facts before I move forward with something. And that's exactly what they're doing on the House side. That's why tomorrow is a seminal day to hear from Director Mueller. I did a lot of public corruption cases where the defendants were stonewalling, and I had to go to court. And that's what our House leadership is doing right now, and we're winning every time in court. So you
believe the process that Speaker Nancy Pelosi is the right one in terms of taking this thing slow, as opposed to immediately going to hearings or immediately taking an impeachment vote?
I agree with Speaker Pelosi, and I think I've always been a believer, ready, aim, fire. And also the thing to understand is the only way to defeat this president is at the ballot box. Because the U.S. Senate, if this president is impeached, they don't do anything they're a lapdog for Donald Trump. And so I want to make sure my focus as DNC chair is I got 489 days till the weekend. And my focus every single day is to make sure that we are organizing people. That's why we're here at the NAACP conference. That's why we're coming back next week for the second Democratic Party debate. Places like Michigan, Detroit in particular, are critical to our success. We're organizing early, and that's what we have to do to win is to get into every community, articulate our values, listen, and fight for those issues that matter most to people.
Let's talk about the presidential race. Obviously, you have a ton of people who are running. I think is it 25, 26? I know Congressman Eric Swalwell has dropped out. You've had some people critical of the rules. I just saw Governor Bullock on ABC this week on Sunday when I was on, complaining about that. Is that winnowing process important, establishing who doesn't meet a certain threshold? Because, again, at the end of the day, if you've got 10, 12 people who are not even getting 1%, does it make sense for them to be on the stage? And so talk about that winnowing process that you have.
Well, let me talk about our North Star first. Our North Star principle during this primary process has been we want to be fair to every single person who's running. We want to be fair in facts, fair in perception. And so back in January or February, we set forth the rules for the June debates. And they were inclusive, and I'm proud that they were inclusive, because early on, I don't want to just have a polling threshold, Roland, because that just measures name ID in many cases. So we did something unprecedented. We gave people a polling pathway to the debate stage, and we gave people a grassroots fundraising pathway. We said for these first two debates, 1% in 3 polls or 65,000 donors. And we wanted to return power to the grassroots.
From a certain number of states this way.
And including at least 200 from no less than 20 states. And we got that from the 1971 public campaign finance law that Congress passed.
So you're trying to show breadth of one's appeal.
And also, if you want to win the presidency, you got to connect with the grassroots.
Right.
One of the most prolific grassroots fundraisers in politics right now is Donald Trump. And I've heard some criticism from some candidates saying that, well, this is too hard. And with all due respect, if you can't connect with the grassroots, then that's a real problem. And so we've set forth those two, the threshold for June and July. Now in September, it moves up, and that happens every debate cycle, every primary cycle. The closer you get to the Iowa and New Hampshire, the higher the bar is. And so for September, you need 2% and, not or, 2% and 130,000 unique voters, including 400 from 20 states. And if you've got 100,000 today, all you need is another 30. It doesn't go back to zero. So
let's talk about the September debate that's going to take place at Texas Southern University, my hometown in Houston, HBCU there as well. So explain to the folks. I know we've been communicating. Yeah. So it's also happening on a Thursday and a Friday, same time as Congressional Black Caucus Foundation, ALC. So explain to folks who have no idea. Yeah. Was that a DNC decision? Was that an ABC decision? How did that come about?
Right, we were in contact with the CBC Foundation in connection with this, and here's the challenge. We have a network, ABC, that's willing to give us 2 weeknights in a row. The challenge with September is
two prime time weeknight when the new TV season starts.
And that's the challenge. So if you look at September, you got September 11th. We're obviously not going to do something on 9/11. You've got Monday Night Football and Thursday Night Football, which we want to maximize eyeballs. And then when you get into the middle of September, that's when the new season starts, and it's frankly impossible to find 2 weeknights in September after the 15th where any of the networks would have. Any of the non-cable networks would have done it. So,
and there were criticism in 2016 that you had debates on the weekends. So that's also there.
And we're sensitive to all of that. We want to make sure, again, my North Star, we want to make sure everyone gets a fair shake. And here's why. All but one of these candidates are not going to make it to the mountaintop, Roland.
Right.
And I want to make sure that all those candidates and their supporters feel like they got a fair shake. They got a chance to come to the plate, swing the bat. In this case, we have June. CNN, MSNBC, others have done these town halls. They've had unprecedented access to earned media, and some have been able to have their moments. Others are hoping to get those moments. All of them are wonderful candidates, and that's why I wanted to give them a fair shake.
All right, folks, going to a break right now. Roland Martin Unfiltered. We come back, we'll hear from Derek Johnson, of course, who is the president of the NAACP. You're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered live from Detroit at the 110th Annual NAACP Convention. You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it. All right, folks, you heard me talk a lot about marijuanastock.org. Why? Because I want to keep you informed of investment opportunities that make sense. We have all watched the growth of the cannabis industry. A recent report by New Frontier Data estimates the global cannabis market at over $340 billion. We know that marijuana legalization is sweeping the country state by state. We also know that marijuana has a good cousin, the hemp plant, with a much higher concentration of CBD. That means hemp gives you all of the medical benefits of marijuana without getting you high. Until recently, hemp farming was practically illegal in the U.S. and heavily regulated by the DEA. However, the 2018 Farm Bill changed all of that, making it legal to grow hemp CBD in the U.S. and creating one of the largest commodities worldwide. And they need land to grow all of the plants. Folks, this is not rocket science. It's just an investment, an incredible investment opportunity. And that's where our good friends at 420 Real Estate come in. In their business model, it is simple. They buy land that supports hemp CBD grow operations and lease it to licensed, high-paying tenants. That's right, they are hemp CBD landlords, and you can get in on the action. Our friends at 420 Real Estate decided to do something special for the Roland Martin Unfiltered family. Originally, the minimum investment level was $500. Right now, though, you can invest in the crowdfunding campaign for as little as $200. The range is from $200 to $10,000. Again, this is a $340 billion industry, okay, that is still growing, and you can get in with as little as $200. To invest, go to marijuanastock.org. That's marijuanastock.org. Get in the game, and you can do it now. All right, folks, here at the NAACP convention, Derek Johnson, the president of the NAACP, he and I sat down for a conversation, covered a wide range of issues, including what he is doing to move the NAACP, not being a egocentric led organization, meaning all about one person, but really about how do you build massive grassroots support that can sustain movements over years and decades. My conversation with the president of the NAACP. Hey, folks, Roland Martin here, joining us live at the NAACP 110th Annual Convention here in Detroit is Derek Johnson, President and CEO of the NAACP. Derek, always good to see you.
Good to see you.
So
Thank you for being here.
So first of all, what's happening right now is first of all, there are many resolutions that take place here, about 150 or so. So reparations is a part of this. There are people out there who say, well, NAACP, take a stand on reparations. They have. Can you explain it?
It's funny. From the very beginning of Congressman John Conyers introducing House Bill 40, I think in 1972, NAACP has been in support of the position of reparations, particularly the position of a study to understand how reparations should be dealt with in this nation. We were on the forefront of the conversation before it became a national conversation. So for those who say, why don't we take a stand, we've already taken a stand. We've taken a stand perhaps before many of them were even born.
Well, that's what's happening right now. So we want to ask you that. Well, let's just talk about tying that also a black agenda, because it was very interesting. I had a conversation with some folks who said that there's some people who talked about the idea that, well, we really haven't had a black agenda. And I said, okay, if you read a book, go read about Clarence Mitchell, the book called The 101st Senator. You even go further back. You could talk about A. Philip Randolph. You've had consistent. First of all, you go back to Robert Abbott, Chicago Defender. I mean, we can go on and on and on. I mean, the reality is you had black folks presenting a black agenda for centuries.
It's not a new phenomenon that individuals making noise about the need for a position that covers all black folks. The problem with that notion, we're not a monolith. But also, understanding our history, we've always had organizations that were representative bodies like the NAACP, where individuals come from across the country. For us, it's 2,200 units in 47 states that come together and vote on our policies, positions, and priorities. You have other organizations, you have fraternities, you have sororities that adopt positions. And if you look at all the positions our organizations adopt, you take away much of the semantics and some nuances, we're all saying the same thing. That's our agenda. It has been that way ever since the Black Convention of '72. It has been that when people align behind either Booker T. Washington or Du Bois. Those are all black agendas or positions around policy issues. The real question is, stop having arguments about the ancillary and the vehicles and get involved with the substance and pushing for the outcomes.
Yeah, and then that's the key, because, again, there have been presentation of black agendas, but then after the election is over, how do folks then mobilize and organize to actually make it happen? I raised the point of Clarence Mitchell. Many people have no idea who he was. But when it came to civil rights legislation, you had people who are out there who were marching. You had people out there who were protesting. But there had to be somebody who was in D.C. walking the halls of Congress, literally meeting with people, going over language. That's what his job is. And so that's the dirty work of policy. You can't just say, demand it from a candidate. Are you going to be there after they win every day? Every day pushing, and when one little word is changed, no, you're fighting over that word. That's what people, I think, don't understand about how it becomes reality.
You know, it is also one of these problems we have with the notion of an egocentric model of leadership. Everyone is looking for, not everyone, many people are looking for that charismatic personality who puts together this big event, this march, this demonstration, this protest. Those are our vehicles to get to the outcome, so we cannot lose sight of the outcome. And the outcome is the nuance. It's to work in the dark. It's walking the halls. It's staying focused on how do policy move, how do change happen, and how we collectively work towards that change, not the rhetoric.
And, of course, you're going to have a presidential forum. And I take it's going to be one-on-one. Yes. So not all of them on stage.
Right.
How much time will each person get? It's going to take place tomorrow. We'll be live streaming it right here in Roland Unfiltered. So walk us through how that is actually going to take place.
So we decided to go from having individuals speaking at our podium and speaking to their campaign talking points to having a true moderated conversation with April Ryan, so we can get to the substance of the issues that we want to hear collectively as NAACP, specifically, but issues as it relates to the black community. Why should we surrender our stage for rhetoric, for campaign speech? Let's get to the heart of the matter.
How much time for each one?
So you asked me the details I don't know. That's
got it.
That's why we're NAACP with a staff, right? All right. But I think there's not enough time for any one candidate. So I'm thinking about 20 to 30 minutes per candidate, but don't hold me to that because I don't know.
So obviously Senator Kamala Harris is going to be here.
Yes.
Mayor Pete Buttigieg.
He decided to come.
Will Senator Bernie Sanders be here?
Yeah, he'll be here.
Vice President Joe Biden.
He will be here.
Senator Elizabeth Warren.
Elizabeth Warren will be here.
And who else? Did I miss anybody?
Cory Booker will be here.
Senator Cory Booker. Okay.
Castro will be here.
Okay.
The former governor of Massachusetts, running as a Republican, will be here as well.
Weld
will be here. Yes. So it's a full bevy of candidates coming before our delegates to talk about the issues that are of concern with us and how they would address those issues.
Now, the NAACP did invite Donald Trump.
Yes.
That was back and forth. My understanding is that he was interested in coming to speak if there were no questions.
That's correct.
And the NAACP said no.
That's correct.
You're going to get asked questions.
Yes.
Is that what took place?
So, we have invited the sitting president every year that we've convened our delegates, 110 years. We opened up the forum. We invited President Trump last year. We invited him when he was a nominee on the Republican ticket. But this year, we decided to change the format. We want to make sure we can get to the substance of the conversation and not the rhetoric of the conversation. And that wasn't about him, that was about everybody. So initially, we looked at Wednesday as an opportunity. They came back to us after 5 months of not hearing anything and decided to let us know they were interested in coming, but Wednesday wouldn't work. Fine. Could we do something early in the week? They came back, they asked for Sunday, said, well, that's not an option. So we narrowed down to Tuesday. And because Tuesday was a place that we could fix the agenda. And then we said it would be a moderated conversation. Well, no, we want to come back on Wednesday. You can't come on Wednesday now because we've populated that schedule. So you got Tuesday, there's a moderated conversation. And once they found out that, they said, well, We don't want to do that. We want to have the original conversation of him coming and presenting to the delegate. I said, well, that's not an option because he's now a candidate, and we're treating all the candidates the same. The only deviation we're going to do for you is allow you to come Tuesday and not Wednesday.
So what you're saying is that because it's a presidential election and he's already announced his running, even though he is the sitting president, you're treating him as a candidate, saying, okay, if you come, you have to abide by the rules of the other candidates where you were asked questions. So let's say it was last year. It was you in San Antonio. He wasn't a candidate. That would have been a traditional speech.
It could have been, right?
Gotcha.
If we decided to allow that type of format.
Got it.
You know, we are obligated, and I think it's necessary for us to extend across political party lines and especially to the sitting president. But we're not obligated to have any particular format because it's our stage.
Right.
And we're going to control our stage. And because this particular president has yet showed the discipline not to use the microphone for a political purpose, we will continue to hold him to a standard of a moderated conversation.
Well, look, I'm on the board of the National Association of Black Journalists. Whenever we invite president or even any candidates, minority journalism organizations who ask them questions.
Right.
And so that's the deal. So, if you're going to come, not just give a speech, and that's how it is. There were some people, Joe Madison has said that NAACP should disinvite Donald Trump. There are others who said, why in the world would you invite him to come to the convention? Why extend the invitation?
But, it is something that we do out of our IRS obligation. We're a nonpartisan organization. We don't support political parties or candidates. It is something we do because our delegates and the community should hear from all points of view when it comes to public policy considerations. It is part of what we do because, no permanent friends, no permanent enemies. We've had good support from Tim Scott. But we don't agree with Tim Scott on everything. But when it came down to certain judicial nominees, like Thomas Farr, it was Tim Scott who stood up in his blackness and was still with us to vote against individuals like Tom Farr. So for us, we use this forum so we can hear perspectives. But at the same time, we're not going to surrender the stage for someone who's proven to be undisciplined with the microphone, stay on message, and not go off script, and use our stage for his political hate speech.
This is the second convention for you now as president. You talked earlier about not being sort of the egocentric leader where it's sort of like this is the one person. And in fact, I think I'll say this. In fact, that was sort of evidence yesterday. So yesterday, normally, I know in past years, NAACP president sort of created a major speech. Yesterday, Speaker Pelosi spoke. Congressman Rashida Tlaib, and then you came on after them.
That's correct.
And in fact, it was a packed house when they were here. Then a lot of people took off for lunch.
Yes.
And so, talk about that form of leadership, but also restructuring the organization with your 22 branches. Talk about how that has gone and how it has sort of changed the NAACP to get ready for 2020.
So for me, and I come out of a different type of tradition, if we build institutions to last, those institutions will be there when we need them. But if we center institutions around personalities, when the personalities go away, we see these big, sharp ebbs and flow. We see that right now with SCLC, unfortunately. It was built around personalities, and over time, we begin to see it subside. Institutions across the country, black and white, are now, they're not what they used to be. People don't join like they used to. So for us, in my leadership, I'm looking at how do we build our internal capacity to respond timely to the interests and needs of African Americans? How do we build our infrastructure so no matter who's in place, it will continue? How do we build in our fundraising strategy to ensure that we're not dependent on any particular sector outside of our membership dollars? That's what's most important. The vehicle of the NAACP for 110 years, if every person alive would renew their membership today, we will supersede our budget by over $20 million. That's important to know. But because over time we didn't zero in on our infrastructure, maintaining and updating how we function, we have lost some of that. My goal is to rebuild that. Because when I'm out of this seat, I want this organization to be healthy and alive and prospering, not based on the individual, but based on the will of the people that collectively make up our membership.
One of the things that, again, we talk about infrastructure. Yesterday in your speech, you talked about these black political machines, these groups that existed where when you had mayors and others and people along those lines. And you talked about how we've lost that. I have been yelling for years. When I talk about Divine Nine, I spoke to the Deltas this year. I talked about how we have infrastructure. If you look at black churches, especially those with hierarchy, AME Zion, different churches that have hierarchy. And it's amazing to me how people don't understand why infrastructure matters.
You know, I grew up here in Detroit, right? I understand the value of a political machine. I can recall there was an individual running for governor, and it was in the early 80s. And his whole stunt was he was going to be the governor to put the mayor of the city of Detroit in his place. The mayor of the city of Detroit was Coleman Young. Coleman Young had a true machine. He took him on a challenge. And on election day, every city vehicle that had gas in it drove up and down the street, pushing people out to the polls, including garbage trucks, had big signs on the side, "Go vote today." When the election was over, that particular candidate was defeated by far because of the huge increase of turnout in the city of Detroit. Coleman Young's response was, I guess I was the mayor of the city of Detroit that's sitting there want to be governor back home. That's political power. That's political infrastructure. If we had that, then we could grow more jobs for black folks. We can demand more equity in contracting. We can ensure that all the things that we want and need as a community, we can have. But unfortunately, we've had many people to get successful, get the contracts, leave out of the cities to the suburbs, and the very thing that got them the money to do it, they no longer have a political voice in, and now they're not getting the contracts anymore, i.e. Atlanta, i.e. D.C., i.e. Harlem, i.e. Detroit.
Philadelphia.
We can go down, Gary, Indiana. That is the loss of political infrastructure, and that loss of political infrastructure means the loss of jobs, the loss of contracts, entrepreneurship. We can ill afford to continue to go down that path.
Last question for you, and that is looking for the 2020. And again, there was a drop, 2.4% drop of black voters in 2016 from who voted for with Obama in 2012. What is absolutely needed to get folks to understand why that vote absolutely matters and how it must be, folks must be registered, but it must be mobilized and organized, because you can register folks to vote, but then you'll get them to the polls.
Yes.
That means you just register them to vote.
So this convention kicks off our work for 2020. We're starting now for 2020 election. We've got a data scientist in place. We've identified what we call low propensity voters. These are individuals who are registered to vote and are voting. If we bump that needle 1.5%, 2%, 3% in targeted areas, we win every election that we think we should win, bar none. These are African Americans, because we don't have to tell African Americans how to vote. We're going to vote the way we need to in terms of our interests.
Right.
But on top of that, we're asking people to text to the number 40649 WIN.
WIN.
40649 WIN. And once you text it, you sign up. We're going to tell you the 10 people in your immediate neighborhood who are registered to vote, but they don't vote, and we need to get them out. And some people are going to be shocked because it's going to be their neighbor, it's going to be their child or their husband, because in this relational organizing model that we're doing, it's not based on a personality, it's not based on the event, it's based on neighbor talking to neighbor, family talking to neighbor to go to the polls, and we've purchase and build out the technology, one of our infrastructure fix, to identify who that is.
All right. Well, sure looking forward to that.
All right.
Derek, thanks a bunch.
Thank you.
Always a pleasure.
Take care.
All right, folks, there have been any number of sessions taking place all throughout the NAACP convention yesterday and today, continuing education, but also those dealing with issue of criminal justice, and also how do we get folks activated to push those issues. Yusef Salam, one of the Generated Five, he was on a panel today, along with the sheriff here in Wayne County, Benny Napoleon. The moderator was Jamira Burley, so y'all know Jamira. Come on, Jamira. You often have seen her on my show. She hasn't been on lately because, you know, she's now in New York working for a UN agency there, and so I said, all right, fine, we're here in Detroit, you're here, and let's go ahead and talk to you. I don't know why I talked to her, because she has no sense. She's the queen of shade, but so first of all, let's talk about it. First, this is some work that you've been involved in for a very long time, from Philadelphia, and so now all of a sudden I think we're at a place where people now understand that criminal justice reform is not about who's in D.C., but really who's on the state level, but who's on the local level, these judges and DAs.
No, I fully agree. What we're realizing is that oftentimes the changes are going to happen from the federal level, and so a lot of progressive organizations is now targeting mayors, governors, as well as city council members to really think about what is the comprehensive reform that can happen on the local level that actually can get us to the change that we need in a timely fashion, because really the federal government can only oftentimes focus on federal policy that doesn't oftentimes trickle down to the local municipality.
Well, it's like First Step Act. People talk about, look, there are only 230,000 people, not only, but only 230,000 or so people who are in federal prisons. The other 2 million are in state prisons or local jails.
Exactly, and so it's really important for us to cultivate local politicians as well as local community members to advocate for local change, especially when you think about who has control over the police force in those local communities is the mayor oftentimes, who can enact a lot of progressive change on the local level at a much quicker pace. And also, even we've seen in many Republican communities, Republican mayors and our governors, they're more often likely willing to go progressive route regarding criminal justice reform than on the federal level. And so there is some wiggle room on the local level with our colleagues across the aisle.
And again, I think for a lot of them, it's a fiscal issue. For a lot of us, it's not. My whole deal is it doesn't matter how we arrive, as long as we actually get it done. I want to talk about connecting the dots. I think that one of the biggest issues when I talk to people, I want to get your thoughts on this, is that folks say, I want to do something, but they don't understand how all of these different things are connected. So you can focus on the district attorney, but if you ignore who these judges are, those are the folks who really are handing down sentences. We can sit here and some people can have a very different tone where you're black, you're a prosecutor, but you actually want people who are prosecutors who are thinking differently than other prosecutors.
No, I fully agree. If we look at I mean, it is a system, right? It is not just one component, the police. It is not just one component, the judges or the actual prisons. We are talking about every single person that has a role to play that actually facilitates a person going to incarceration. And so we as a community need to look at how do we have a comprehensive approach from looking at how schools do school to prison pipeline, how judges actually do sentencing, how police officers are actually engaging with communities of color, and then oftentimes when folks do get arrested, is there systems in place that actually allows for those folks to get reintegrated back into society and get a job versus get rearrested? So it's so many different pieces to the puzzle, and there is space and opportunity for everyone to get involved.
All right. Jamira Burley, I appreciate it. Thanks a bunch. How can folks reach you?
You can reach me on Twitter and Instagram at Jamira Burley or jamiraburley.com.
All right. And she'll be a little shady with you, but don't worry about it. That's how she is. I appreciate it. All right. Good seeing you. All right, folks, we got to talk about this crazy-ass story. Normally we have our crazy white people. Okay, wait to my panel weigh in on this. Oh, my God, y'all. This actually happened, okay? In an interview with Gayle King on CBS this morning, R. Kelly's crisis manager, I cannot, but when I saw this, somebody sent me this, and I said, this has to be a hoax. It could not be real, okay? So R. Kelly's crisis manager, Daryl Johnson, revealed, you know what? Just play it, and we'll talk about it with our panel.
You have a 20-something-year-old daughter. Would you allow her to be alone with
Absolutely not.
With R. Kelly?
I wouldn't leave my daughter with anybody that's accused of pedophilia. Period.
So you would not?
I would not leave my daughter with anyone that's accused of being a pedophile. I would not.
That doesn't seem like a contradiction to you. You're
absolutely
sitting here defending R. Kelly, but at the same time saying you wouldn't leave your own daughter with him.
I wouldn't leave my daughter with anyone. Okay. I'm going to say it again. That's accused of being a pedophile.
Kelly, is it any shock Daryl Johnson is no longer the crisis manager for R. Kelly?
No, because it seems like he's about to be in his own crisis right now. Not only was it contradictory, but it was very telling that somebody in R. Kelly's own camp is admittedly saying that he wouldn't leave his own child around R. Kelly, regardless of whether he's accused of being a pedophile or not. At this point, it seems like a little bit beyond an accusation, but I understand, innocent until proven guilty via court, et cetera, et cetera. But no, he's in a crisis of his own at this point, and, God bless him on his journey.
Jason, if you're in trouble and you've been hit with state charges and federal charges about being with underage women, it really doesn't work for you when your crisis manager goes on television and says, no, I wouldn't leave my daughter with somebody who's accused of pedophilia, meaning your client. That was crazy. And, of course, a lawyer for R. Kelly says that Johnson resigned Monday night for personal reasons. Yes, like answering damn questions to Gayle King.
Yeah. I don't know who vetted that guy, who thought hiring him was a good idea. He was not prepared to do the job. And I don't know why the attorney isn't the crisis guy. Why isn't the attorney the person who's speaking on the case and talking about, R. Kelly and R. Kelly's innocence? I mean, that's the person who's got all the facts and is most prepared. But they hired some consultant who was really quick. I mean, he didn't even think about it. He was like, absolutely not. R. Kelly? Heck no. You know what I mean? It just did not work out well for him, and I'm sure it's not going to do a whole lot of wonders for his business either. So good luck, in whatever your new job is. I forgot the guy's name, but, his beard was really black. I don't know what he put in that.
You know what?
I need some of that. I need some of that for these grays here. So maybe he can endorse that.
Melik, Bakari Sellers tweeted this. This is what happens when you order your crisis manager off eBay.
Oh, no.
I mean, I have to agree with him. At Crisis Management 101, go to bat for your client. In the idea that he would get on national television and say that he wouldn't allow his daughter. Now, I get his point, the later point, which was that he wouldn't like his daughter to be around anyone who's been accused of pedophilia or something like that. But there's a way that you can answer that question without throwing your client under the bus. I mean, he didn't just throw him under the bus. He literally dug a hole just all the way down to the center of the core's earth. And that's where he placed R. Kelly. I mean, and I think that's probably what's going to happen with his career. But like Jason said, he had a lot of great, was that Bantu, or what is that called? Beijing.
Wow. Y'all should know this. I shouldn't be knowing this. I don't wear, wow, never mind.
But yeah, just a truly bad decision, and it would be interesting to see who takes him up, on any contract moving forward after this, because clearly he was not ready.
Did he have one before? Is this his first client? That's what he's acting like.
As in nobody. As in, I'm sure no one will hire him for a crisis manager. Maybe to do their beard, as Jason said, but it won't be any of that. Yeah, I'm just saying. So that's pretty wild, pretty crazy. Okay, got to ask y'all this here. Kelly, I'll start with you. Earlier today, Donald Trump gave a speech. He was trashing Rashida Tlaib and others, calling her a kook, things along those lines. It's amazing how he loves to keep attacking women. Clearly, he wants to make this election. He needs a foil, so he's trying to attack the squad. Do you believe that he's playing a dangerous game? Because, look, it's not like he won women, and 53% of white women voted for him. But his constant attacks on women, what happens if his nominee is a woman?
Then he'll be attacking that nominee. I don't think that Trump really cares at this point who his enemy is, who his adversary is, so long as he has one. Because if there's no adversary against Trump, then he has no reason to be acting the way that he's acting. Right now, he has put himself in a dynamic where it looks like he's justifying his actions because he has an enemy. And, year one, it was the media. Year two, it was somebody else. Now we are approaching the election, and it's women because they don't agree with him. So he needs somebody like that. He needs an entity like that in order to keep moving forward with his base, because if his base doesn't have an enemy, then they actually have to do soul searching too as to why they're supporting Trump. And nobody wants to do that right now because they'll combust. Personally, I think they'll combust because there's no rationale behind it.
Milik?
Yeah, I mean, this is, of course, he wants to make them the face of the party, and this is something that he hopes that will serve him well. I will say that I do believe that Donald Trump, for all intents and purposes, is equal opportunity offender. He doesn't care who you are. If you try to cut off his finger, he's going to cut off your entire arm. So that's something that I do believe. I do think that, we saw what happened when he campaigns against a woman with Hillary Clinton. I think that it's going to be a little more challenging if it's someone like Kamala Harris, Senator Harris, because then you add the racial component to that. And I think that that's something that can kind of really trip him up. And so he would have to be, unfortunately, he would have to be more careful in how he criticizes Kamala Harris than he did Hillary Clinton, simply because of just the racial dynamic.
I think that would bolster him.
I don't think
that would bolster
I don't
him.
think that at all.
If Kamala Harris actually becomes the nominee and Trump becomes the nominee for his party, which he will, he's not going to change his trajectory as to how to bully.
Right.
He only knows how to bully one way, and that's just to attack.
If you
Jason?
I'm sorry.
I was going to say, I
Jason?
think, by making the squad the enemy, it's really about the fact that these are women of color. And we saw he won without, barely any black women votes. I think it was, 96% black women voted for Hillary Clinton. So, he knows who to make the enemy, and he's making a Muslim, a woman of Palestinian descent, a woman who wears hijab, a Puerto Rican from New York, and an African-American woman, the enemy. And, that works perfectly for his base. That actually may drive his base out quicker. He's saying that they're socialists. This actually plays up. We know he loves racial controversy, and, that drives his base. So I think he actually likes that. Now, on the other side, I think having the squad and them be the targets of Trump's attacks actually can drive our side up. And this is really going to be a challenge in terms of whose base is going to be more galvanized, who's going to drive turnout. That's what this all comes down to. It's all about turnout. And hopefully our side, if it's a woman candidate or even if it's an old white guy, hopefully our side will turn out and, we'll be able to take out Trump, because he's actually sowing the seeds of racial and ethnic division and religious division. That's what he wants. That's what he thrives on.
Yep.
That's where he went with birtherism. That's what got him into the political arena. So he loves that.
Right.
Milik,
final word.
Yeah, can I just say, I don't think that...
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I don't think that...
I'll give you final word. Go ahead, Milik.
Yeah, I don't think that it matters that they're persons of color. If you consider what he said about crooked Hillary Clinton, he's talked about Ted Cruz's wife. He talked about Carly Fiorina. So I don't think that it's a person of color thing. This is just Donald Trump. So I'll push back and say that I don't think that, he's trying to, create any racial animus by criticizing them. It's just some of their policies, and you see even people within the policy, within the Democratic Party actually pushing back on some of the progressive ideals of these particular four women. And so I think he will do well making them the face of the Democratic Party, and it will serve him well going into the election, and but not for racial reasons. It's just found it.
Absolutely for racial reasons. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said what he
Kelly,
said.
go ahead. Final comment.
Trump is a racist, point blank, period. He has a history of racism. He has physical, written evidence of his racism. His tweets are a litany of racist thought, and he's putting these four women on a pedestal as his enemy because they're women of color, like Jason said, but predominantly they're people of color. Otherwise, he wouldn't have said anything along the lines of go back to where you came from, go back to your country, et cetera, et cetera. That would not have happened.
All right. Jason, Kelly, Melik, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot. Thanks for joining us today. Hey, folks, if you want to see what took place at the NAACP today, go to our YouTube channel. We live streamed yesterday's sessions, as well as the keynote speech of Stacey Abrams today. The morning session, Vanita Gupta, she spoke. Tom Perez spoke. Also, the resolutions. You want to check that out because they had a very spirited debate about reparations and also cannabis, including that in this reparations resolution. And so we have that as well. You can see all of that on our YouTube channel. Plus, Joe Madison gave a great speech at the NAACP membership luncheon, and so we have that speech as well. This is why Roland Martin Unfiltered matters, folks. Our team has been here. We have been live streaming these events. All these media people out here, this is so funny. If y'all want to understand why this stuff matters, all these media people start writing all these stories saying the NAACP unanimously approves the resolution to impeach Trump, but none of them were here. None of them. They literally were writing the stories off of the NAACP and Derek Johnson's tweets. Well, guess what? We were in the room. Our cameras were there. And so the only folks who were there recording what was going on and streaming it, Roland Martin Unfiltered, which is why we are here, which is why we need your support to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every single dollar you give goes to support the show. Now, I've had literally 5 people say, hey, but what about a mug or a T-shirt? The reality is, look, that costs money as well. Every dollar goes right back into the show for us to be able to broadcast from places like this, because we're focused also on 2020, taking this show on the road, going where voters are, hearing from them, doing all kinds of different events. That's what we're all about. So we want you to join our fan club. It's not just about us watching the show, which is great. The bottom line is this costs money. And so we need you to support us. And so our goal is to ask each of our fans who are watching to give $50 each for the course of the year. You can give per month or you can give one time. If you want to give more than that, that's great. We got some people who have given $500, $1,000 or more. But this is about us controlling our narrative, being independent, to be able to say what we want, when we want, and that's why this matters. Go to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com or join our Bring the Funk fan club. As it for me, tomorrow, the presidential forum takes place here from Detroit. It starts around 8 a.m. We're going to be live streaming the entire presidential forum. Trust me, go to my Instagram page. You're going to see a photo I posted, how the media course riser was totally empty. It was just us on the riser today. Trust me, all these media people are going to be here tomorrow because the candidates are going to be here. But we're going to be live streaming the entire deal, not picking and choosing who you hear from. And so check out our YouTube channel, Facebook page, and Periscope page, because we'll be the one who is sitting there giving to you straight, unlike the rest of the people. And let me tell you what's going to happen. When the candidates all are done, all the media going to pack their gear up and leave. But after that, there's a CEO roundtable of black CEOs. We're going to be streaming that as well. That's why we do what we do. All right, folks, from Detroit, the 110th Annual NAACP National Convention. I certainly appreciate it. I will see you guys tomorrow. Holla! You want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered? YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And subscribe to our YouTube channel. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. See that name right there? Roland Martin Unfiltered. Like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. That's YouTube.com/Roland S. Martin. And don't forget to turn on your notifications so when we go live, you'll know it.
Hey everybody, this is your man Fred Hammond, and you're watching Roland Martin, my man, Unfiltered.
Hi, this is Essence Atkins, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hey yo, peace world, what's going on? It's the Love King of R&B, Raheem Devon, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, my name is Brescia Webb, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. Ow. Well, I like a nice filter usually, but we can be unfiltered.
What's going on? This is Tobias Trevelyan, and if you're ready, you are listening to and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
What's up? I'm Lance Gross, and you're watching Roland Martin Unfiltered.
Hi, this is Cheryl Lee Ralph, and you are watching Roland Martin Unfiltered. I mean, could it be any other way? Really? It's Roland Martin.
You want to support Roland Martin Unfiltered? Be sure to join our Bring the Funk fan club. Every dollar that you give to us supports our daily digital show. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real as Roland Martin Unfiltered. Support the Roland Martin Unfiltered daily digital show by going to RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Our goal is to get 20,000 of our fans contributing $50 each for the whole year. You can make this possible. RolandMartinUnfiltered.com. Hey fam, want to check out Roland Martin Unfiltered, the blackest show on all of digital, cable, and broadcast. Check out our audio podcast. There's only one daily digital show out here that keeps it black and keep it real. It's Roland Martin Unfiltered. Press play.